What's up, guys? It's your boy X back at you again with another video today, and we're gonna jump into another tattoo time-lapse video. This will be a continuation of the drawing time-lapse video that I posted yesterday of the insulin bottle, the lemon, and the peonies. So let's dive right into it. Let's get this voiceover going. Alright, so some of you that might be more familiar with the tattoo industry might know that when we stencil a tattoo, the color is primarily purple pigment that's on the stencil paper. A couple years back, I went to the Villain Arts tattoo convention in Chicago, and I happened to be fortunate enough to win a Brother S8 stencil printer. And during this tattoo, I was experimenting with the stencil paper that came along with the stencil printer, and the pigment on the paper happened to be red in this instance. Honestly, you know, my feedback on the quality of the stencil that it could produce, and the machine itself works pretty good. As far as would I have it in a shop, definitely not. I'd say it primarily shines best on the road during conventions, during private sessions, things of that nature, where you just need decent stencil on the fly and you need it printed out via Wi-Fi. You don't have access to, you know, the old-fashioned stencil printers that weigh like 60 pounds. But as far as the actual stencil paper that was included, honestly, it was trash. So I would never recommend that. I would say get the regular Spirit, tried and true stencil paper. Use that alongside the S8 printer, and you got a pretty decent combination. You might have to play around with your stencil a little bit and Procreate in order to make sure that it comes out dark enough to transfer to skin. But other than that, it does a pretty decent job. It'll get the job done. So as you guys can see, you know, I'm laying in that outline. It's coming along pretty nicely. We got the bottle lined out, working on some of those background leaves. Got the peony all lined with the you know, the primary outliner. I'm using two throughout this tattoo. I'm using a 7 liner as well as I want to say I was using a 3 that day, but don't quote me. Could be a 3, could be a 5. But yeah, just using that for the smaller lines that you'll see later on in the peony, as well as, yeah, I think that was the only place I used the smaller liner, was in the peony, just so I could add some varying line weights. No, and in the background leaves as well. You'll see the leaves behind the lemon and behind the peony, they got some of the smaller line work as well. So yeah, so now I'm getting up there into the background stem leaves behind the lemon and just laying those in. This was a really fun tattoo to do. I had a great time. It's always nice to get a piece where you can showcase your technical tattoo abilities. You know, just bread and butter stuff. You know, execute a line crisply, cleanly. Make sure your shading is smooth, fully saturated, and you know, just give an overall clean, crisp tattoo to a client. It's a pretty gratifying feeling. Alright, so looks like we're moving on to the shading now, getting in there, focusing on our primary piece of subject matter first before dealing with the secondary and tertiary pieces of subject matter. That way, you know, I can create a good relationship between, you know, the positive and negative, and make sure that, you know, contrast still stays high, and visual priority is given primarily to the insulin bottle, because that's our primary piece of subject matter. So I figure that's pretty much the way I try to approach things is, you know, what's the most important thing, and, you know, I'll make sure I'll take care of those value relationships within that first, and then let that dictate what everything around it is going to be. As far as, you know, dark to light goes, I didn't really go into this with any kind of specific plan as far as how I was going to shade it. I never really do. I feel like that kind of stifles creativity and the ability for the piece to evolve organically as you're creating it. So I kind of just go with what I feel in the moment, as well as trying to pay attention to like basic light logic, you know, how I feel like light would strike a form, how it would turn the form. That way, you know, my decisions are more deliberate and less sporadic appearing in nature, you know. So try to be aware and present of those kind of things while I'm tattooing illustrative subject matter like this. Of course, if it was realism, I would be paying attention to like a photo reference throughout the entire time to establish my values, my edges, you know, my light sources and things of that nature. But yeah, so we're into the background here. Looks like I'm trying to make those leaves a little bit darker so that they stand out, and those would be the tertiary subject matter that I was talking about earlier on. Yeah, so it's good to break it down like that, man. You gotta be able to distinguish what's primary, what's secondary, and what's tertiary. And then in this case, our primary piece of subject matter, like I said before, would be the insulin bottle. Secondary pieces of subject matter would be the peony flower and the lemons. Tertiary pieces of subject matter would be the leaves behind it, the background leaves. Yeah, you know, that way you can kind of guide the viewer through the piece they're looking at, and help them decide what they should be looking at first, and in what order they should be looking at the things that follow. It's pretty important. Composition, super important stuff. But yeah, tattooing is an amazing art form, man. I know people in the fine art world can kind of scoff at it at times, but you know, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like the feeling of, you know, going to work and, you know, creating on another person's skin, on their flesh, and knowing that they 100% depend on you and trust you, you know, to make it happen for them and to produce a quality of artwork that they're going to be happy with for the entire duration of their life experience here on this planet. And, you know, when you start approaching it from that kind of nature, it just brings a whole different level of weight and gravity to the situation of what you're doing. You know, you feel like what you do carries merit and weight, and, you know, you just want to try and, at least in my case, I want to try and do the best work that I can do for my clients and my friends and pretty much anyone that I come in contact with that, you know, wants to work with me. I'm super grateful for anyone that's ever gotten tattooed by me, you know, because they don't have to. You know, there are millions of other tattoo artists around the world that are out there and would be willing to tattoo them and would do an exemplary job, I'm sure. You know, so I'm just gracious for all the people that rock with me over the years and, you know, allow me to adorn their bodies with, you know, indelible designs. So yeah, tattooing is an amazing thing, man. Nothing like it. The harder you work, the more you get out of it. So it looks like we're moving down to this peony now. As far as my gray wash system goes, you know, I don't really, you know, pre-mix like in large quantities. I do a drop mixture, and when I'm doing like traditional illustrative subject matter, it's a very, very simple mixture. Like I'll do like a full cap of black, maybe 9 to 10 drops of black, and then 3 or 4 drops, and then just a cup of water to adjust those tones as I need them. You know, 'cause I don't really need, I feel like when you're doing illustrative subject matter, you don't really need a wide range of values in order to convey, you know, the feel of the piece to the viewer, especially because, you know, the style itself is more simplistic looking in nature. Not that the style itself is simplistic in execution, because it's not. Like, your game has to be on point if you're doing traditional or neo-traditional. But as far as, you know, the overall aesthetics of it, the visual aesthetics of it, is more simplified. So, you know, your palette should be simplified in turn to go along with that. But yeah, just pretty much laying this in with a medium wash. Maybe came back in for a couple areas to darken up some of the parts that are closest to the bulb with a little bit of black. Got into those leaves again, some more black, darken those up to push those back into the background, as well as boost the contrast. I'm all about high contrast and generally darker palettes. I feel like, you know, lighter palette, black and gray, it has its place and it's very cool looking. But when it comes to tattooing and, you know, my personal philosophies on tattooing, I'm a strong advocate in longevity over everything, you know, and darker palettes will tend to age better over time, and it'll tend to age to the point of where, you know, that person should be able to keep that tattoo for the duration of their life experience, you know, as long as they take care of it, versus, you know, a lighter palette, black and gray heel tattoo over time might lighten up to the point where it needs to be reworked in like another 10 years or so, versus a black and gray tattoo with a dark palette, you know, over that same time period might lighten up to the point of where the lighter palette looked fresh or freshly healed in that same amount of time. I don't know if that makes sense, but overall, I'm just trying to say that dark palette, you can learn to see how it's gonna heal. It will yield you a better result in the long run. So, but yeah. Looks like we're finishing up with this one. I hope you guys really liked this video. If you did, drop a comment down below. You know, let me know what other kind of content you'd like to see from me in the future. You know, this was a fun tattoo. I had a good time on it. You know, I appreciate everyone who rocks with the channel. All the new subscribers, you know, I appreciate you guys a lot. Thanks for watching this video, man. I'll see you guys in the next one. Love, peace, and happiness.